Morning, all. All right. News of the day video for all you fine people on the internet for your Monday, April the 28th, getting closer to May. That being said, we start at the top of the board. We have fines handed out this morning. So the Montreal Canadiens and the Washington Capitals as a team, they were both fined $25,000. Individually, Jack-Eye was fined for Montreal and McElrath was fined for the Washington Capitals. This is all due to the warm-up shenanigans that we saw yesterday. And I can't remember a time where we've seen multiple series where there are warm-up shenanigans. But it is, once again, the NHL's way of trying to make sure that we don't have, I believe it was a Claude Lemieux incident back in, wasn't that like 87? Somewhere around there. Anyways, that's what the NHL, I would think, is trying to avoid, is a situation where you end up with a brawl before the game gets started. And that's how it starts. It's just, just a little joking back and forth, and suddenly somebody doesn't like it, and next thing you know, you got yourself an issue. So, the NHL trying to make sure that doesn't take place. There are some in the fandom, I would think, to be like, sure, we could have a warm-up brawl. But I don't think the NHL wants that kind of press. So, the reason I'm wearing a Penguins jersey, Mike Sullivan's out. And I'm already seeing a lot of discussion of who's going to hire him next. Mike Sullivan's going to be a very popular coaching target. There are a lot of teams that I think will be ready to potentially jump on the idea of hiring Mike Sullivan. The idea of maybe Vancouver. And maybe Vancouver because you've got Jim Rutherford, Patrick Allvin, who would be familiar with Sullivan and his coaching style. And if Tocchet decides not to stay, I mean, it would make some sense, right? But I am sure there are a lot of teams. There are already some coaching vacancies. Maybe a return to Boston, as a for instance. He coached in Boston before, or any of the other coaching vacancies. Maybe Chicago picks him up, right? So we'll see how long he's out. Apparently before this was officially announced yesterday, Kyle Dubas had a conversation with Sidney Crosby to let him know that they were making the change, and he is not concerned that Crosby's going to be upset by this move and potentially ask for a trade or to go somewhere else. So, yeah, things in Pittsburgh are definitely changing. We'll see who they bring in to replace Mike Sullivan. I don't know how you replace what Mike Sullivan's done there. Really, honestly, his coaching resume is fantastic coming out of Pittsburgh. So, yeah, let me know your thoughts. Who do you think Pittsburgh brings in as the permanent replacement for Sullivan? And where do you think Sullivan ends up? Because there are definitely going to be some teams that are calling him right now who currently have coaches, is my guess, and are willing to part with the coach they currently have in favor of Mike Sullivan. It's very similar to Jim Montgomery being fired by Boston. I think we'll see a lot of teams lining up. I don't think he's going to be unemployed for very long. The Vezina Finalists have been revealed. Not a huge surprise to see Hellebuyck's name on the list. He's likely to win it. Vasilevsky on the list as well. And both of them struggling in the first round. At least Vasilevsky struggled in the first game. He's had better games 2 and 3, of course. But Darcy Kemper, you look at the advanced numbers, goals saved above expected. Hellebuyck and Kemper have 2 of the worst numbers in the playoffs so far. So it is interesting that the Vezina finalists are struggling in the playoffs, but it does happen. It's something I've talked about before. And regular season is where the trophy nominations come from. They're not going to change it so that the trophies are named or voted on after the playoffs. That won't happen. So it's just their regular season awards is what they are. The one playoff award, of course, is the Conn Smythe. And Hellebuyck highly likely wins the Vezina. But Vasilevsky was right there with him in the stats, especially over the second half of the season. And Darcy Kemper was excellent throughout the regular season and now is having his struggles in the playoffs. Freddy Anderson, the Carolina Hurricanes, of course, is still being evaluated, so no update on him. I'm not surprised there's no update on him. For the Carolina Hurricanes, they're 1 win away from getting past New Jersey and going to a second-round matchup, likely against Washington. In the event that that's the matchup in round 2, we're going to see some low-scoring games, is my guess. Just Carolina's excellent defensively. Washington's fine playing that tight style of game they played last night against Montreal is really Washington's style. And so it could be interesting to see how that series would go and whether or not Freddie's playing. I don't think has as much of a bearing as the goaltending does for Washington. I think Thompson's more important to Washington than the goaltending is in Carolina just because of the style of hockey Carolina plays. I think they can get further with a goaltender that might struggle with another team in the playoffs. So tonight for Dallas, there's no Miro Heiskanen. Not surprised. Coming into the playoffs, he was like seen as week to week. And I honestly think there's some gamesmanship here where they want to keep the Avs off guard a little bit. And probably hoping against hope that Heiskanen's able to play at some point in the series. Beck is in. He's going to play. Maverick Bork apparently coming out of the lineup. So Dallas making a couple of changes. We'll see. Or at least one change, and we'll see whether or not that helps them tonight. I would think the lines probably get shuffled a little bit as well. Minnesota, for tomorrow's game against Vegas, it looks like Merrill's going to make his debut for this series, and that Buium is going to be out. John Hines saying basically he thinks that Buium might need a little bit of a break. They've been looking at that, and it makes some sense. You're going into the Fortress. It's the most important game of the season. If you win Game 5 when a series is tied at 2, your odds of winning that series very, very high. And if you lose that Game 5, and in Minnesota's case, then they'd be going back home, but your odds of winning drop off dramatically. So it makes some sense to go to the veteran Merrill, who has played in Vegas as well, and to take the rookie Buium out just for that one game, and then, see how things go there. So we have the 2 games tonight in the National Hockey League. Quietest night we've had in the playoffs thus far. At 7 Eastern, 4 Pacific, Tampa Bay is playing in Florida. Florida leads that series 2-1. A home team has yet to win a game. Florida's going to try to be the first tonight. I'm sure there won't be any controversy tonight. Hagel's back in the lineup, so we'll see what happens there and what kind of shenanigans we get. And if the NHL ends up finding that battle of Florida, as they find the Battle of Ontario, and now they're finding Washington and Montreal. Maybe we get some kind of warm-up shenanigans between Tampa and Florida. Who knows? Then at 9:30 p.m. Eastern, 6:30 p.m. Pacific, the Colorado Avalanche in Dallas. And this is, it really is just obvious, but it is the most important game of the season for Dallas. The Dallas Stars win this, or it's done. In my opinion, it's done if they don't win tonight. And they're going to have to be a heck of a lot better than they were in Game 4. And they're going to have to hope that Landeskog used up all of his energy in the last game and starts to look a little tired. I don't think that's going to happen. But the series is tied at 2, so whoever wins tonight, as I mentioned before, very, very likely to win this series. So, decent night tonight, and then tomorrow night I think we go back to the 4 games. In fact, I can go ahead and take a look. So tomorrow, we have, I think it's 4 games tomorrow. Yep, 4:30, 6:37, and then Wednesday I think it's 3 games on Wednesday, and then 4 games on Thursday. So it's staying pretty busy after today, but today it's just the 2 games. So if you want to watch all the hockey, you probably will be able to, depending on how long Tampa Bay and Florida takes. And you get a lot of whistles in those games. It's going to probably take a little while, but we shall see. But let me know your picks. Let me know your thoughts on the news of the day. Where do you think Mike Sullivan goes? I don't think he's going to be I would not be surprised if he ends up being hired today. I'll put it that way. But let me know your thoughts. Hit like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Thank you guys so much for all your support as always. I will talk to you again soon.